Ladies and gentlemen, hello. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Just a heads up that our ceremony is going to begin in about 5 minutes. Thank you. Please feel free to have some refreshments, which are served inside. We have bagels and coffee and waters out in the hallway. So please make yourselves comfortable. Thank you.
Good morning. Beautiful day out today. It's always great to have council chambers when things don't come to plan. But I just want to thank you all for coming. As Mayor of Milton, it is my distinct honor to welcome you all to our city's 2024 Memorial Day ceremony. Today, we gather to pay homage to the brave men and women who sacrificed their lives while serving in the United States military. Memorial Day is a time to reflect, understand, and appreciate the ultimate sacrifice made by these courageous individuals for the betterment of our nation. This day holds significant meaning, and it is heartwarming to see many families present. Our community grows stronger when we remember and honor those who fought valiantly for our freedoms and way of life. I am particularly moved to see people of all generations here today, including my 3 children who have attended this ceremony for many years. As parents, it is crucial that we impart the lessons of the past to our children, for without this knowledge, history is bound to repeat itself. I am also delighted to welcome several distinguished guests, Council members Phil Cranmer, Andrea Verhoff, Milton Municipal Court Chief Judge Keith Carnicel. We have former council members Bill Lusk and Karen Thurman here today as well. We also have my fellow mayors, John Bradbury of Johns Creek and Bill Colbrenner of Mountain Park. A special thanks goes to our volunteers from the National Charity League and Troop 3000, as well as Whitetail and Bagel Boys for providing refreshments. Over the next hour, we will be moved by patriotic musical performances, stirring speeches, a poignant ceremony. This event has been made possible through the generosity of our community members, the hard work of our community outreach team, led by Emily Salerno, and supported by the dedicated veterans of the Milton Veterans Memorial Markers. Bill Luss, Nick Satriano, Ron Wallace, and Tom Fiorillo, who work hard to construct, erect, and maintain the memorial markers that adorn our downtown Crabapple and Deerfield corridor areas. For me, I find it quite an experience, especially on a nice day, to drive by these markers to see each flag, recognizing deceased veterans who are a citizen of Milton or related to the citizen who resides in the city of Milton. Today, we pay special tribute to Ronnie Rodham and Bud Alexander, two cherished members of our community who we have lost in this past year. Thank you to everyone involved in making this event possible. Most importantly, thank you to all who have served our nation, both those present today and those who have departed. I would like to welcome retired Commander of the U.S. Navy, Reverend Bob Grimaldi, who will lead us in our invocation today. Thank you.
Good morning. It is always an honor and a great joy to be here to honor the veterans. Welcome. If we can please stand, bow our heads, and join us in prayer. Heavenly Father, we give you thanks for bringing together all these people, especially the leadership of the mayor, the city council, the volunteers, veterans, first responders of this Memorial Day celebration. We must never forget to acknowledge the unpayable debt that we owe to the men and women of the United States military who have stood watch, guarded, fought, and died as heroes. To honor their memories and belief in what this great country stands for, freedom, honor, and faith. When our country's needs was the greatest, they stepped forward, went above and beyond their duty to defend these principles that we so enjoy today. Oh God, you yourself have taught us that no love is greater than that which gives its life to another. These honored dead gave the most precious gift they had, life itself, for loved ones and neighbors, for brothers in arms, for our country, and for us. Almighty God, pour out your Spirit upon us so that we may be able to honor them by caring for their wounded brothers in arms and family members they have left behind. We ask you to intercede and allow your divine providence to end all current conflicts and wars, hatred and division plaguing the world, and granting lasting peace so no other young men or women have to follow them to a soldier's grave unless the reason is worthy and the cause is just. Strengthen and protect our military personnel who currently serve or will be in the future. Give them the courage to face whatever comes, protect them in battle, and help them prosper in times of peace. We ask this in your most holy name. Amen. I ask you to please remain standing for the presentation of colors, the national anthem, and the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
Forward march. Maritime march. Attend, hope. Left face. Present arms.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Thank you. Please remain standing and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Be seated. Mayor.
Order, arms. About face. Post colors. Right face. Forward march. Thank you. Solo, wonderful job on that national anthem. I'm gonna go ahead and kind of book you in a future event, right? Okay. So before I read today's Memorial Day proclamation, it's my honor to introduce this video from Georgia Governor Brian Kemp. The governor wanted to share his Memorial Day message with all of us here in Milton.
This is Governor Brian Kemp.
And I'm First Lady Marty Kemp.
Memorial Day is a time for remembrance, gratitude, and respect.
Every year, we honor the memory of those who have paid the ultimate price in protecting our nation and freedoms.
As we saw this year with the loss of 3 of Georgia's own sons and daughters who were serving abroad, today is a solemn reminder that freedom is not free. It is paid for by the sacrifices of brave men and women from all over the state and nation.
Please join us in continuing to pray for their families and friends, as well as all those who have lost loved ones in service to our country.
Be safe this weekend, and may God bless the great state of Georgia and these United States.
I read this proclamation at our last Monday's city council meeting, and I'd like to read it here today. Whereas Memorial Day can trace its roots to the first Decoration Day in May 1868, when veteran organizations began advocating for putting flowers on the graves of fallen Civil War troops to honor their sacrifice. And whereas, in this same spirit, Congress declared the last Monday of May annually as a National Memorial Day holiday some 100 years later. And whereas this holiday provides a dedicated opportunity to pay tribute to the more than 1 million American military members who died from the Revolutionary War through 2 world wars, as well as during more recent conflicts in Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan. And whereas some of those fallen troops hail from Georgia and specifically Milton, and we will never forget their service, courage, and commitment to our nation. And whereas our community remembers them through the volunteer efforts of the Milton Veterans Memorial Markers in a special ceremony each year that all are invited to attend. Whereas the 2024 version will take place at 10 a.m. right here in Council Chambers on May 27th. And whereas on this day and every day, we pay tribute to the inspiring heroes who fought valiantly to support our country and the lives of everyone it calls home. Now, therefore, we, the mayor and the city council of the city of Milton, hereby proclaim Monday, May 27th, 2024 as Memorial Day in Milton. And we urge all citizens to honor our now departed troops. This is given under my hand and seal of the city of Milton, Georgia on this 20th day, May of 2024. I'd like to call Bill Lusk to the podium.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, Milton Patriots. And certainly it takes patriots to come out here during this fall weather. Congratulations. As you drive around and walk around the roads and sidewalks in Milton, I'm sure you've recognized some memorial markers, the columns of them along the sidewalks and the curbs. I started this project 16 years ago to pay tribute to my 6 relatives and friends who served in the different wars and conflicts defending this great nation. More recently, as I received these applications for new markers, I have noticed more and more so that they are my contemporaries. We fought in the same conflicts. We're pretty much the same age. But this year has special significance for me. I've lost 2 great friends this year. The first was Ronnie Rondon, Colonel, United States Army. And Ronnie was instrumental in encouraging me to expand this marker program, which we have, starting in 2008 up to presently when we have 858 markers along the road. Next special friend is Bud Alexander, Captain, United States Navy. And just to prove that there are no coincidences in life, I met Bud 18 years ago while I was campaigning. And I came to find out immediately that Bud commanded the same CB battalion that I served with in Vietnam. So we're here today to pay tribute to these 2 warriors. And to continue this tribute, I'd like to introduce Reverend Paul Doppel, Colonel in the United States Army. Carry on, sir.
Good morning, everyone, and I have the great honor and privilege of talking a little bit about Colonel Rodney Rodham. And very interesting story is he was born in Oslo, Norway during World War II, and he and his parents immigrated in 1955 to Brooklyn, New York. The family also spent some time in New Jersey before moving on to Manchester, New Hampshire. And it was there that Ronnie decided to join the U.S. Army. Initially, he served as a medic, but he felt that there was more that he could do. So he applied for and was accepted to the Infantry Officer Candidate School. And after graduating, he was commissioned as a 2nd lieutenant. He was assigned initially to the 196th Infantry Brigade and served in Vietnam as a platoon leader. He rotated back to the U.S. for an assignment there, but then returned to Vietnam and served as a company commander with the 506th Airborne Infantry Regiment of the 101st Airborne Division. In 1972, he left active duty and attended the University of Texas at Arlington, where he completed a bachelor's degree. In 1973, he began his employment in the civilian sector in human resources positions, serving with several different oil and gas-oriented companies, starting first in Texas. And it was while living in Texas, he concurrently served in the Texas National Guard and the U.S. Army Reserves. In 1990, he was recalled to active duty for Operation Desert Storm, Desert Shield. And Ronnie retired as a colonel in 1996. He later joined Colonial Pipeline Company in Atlanta, where he retired in the year 2000. Colonel Ronnie is a true citizen soldier, and he passed away this January after a years-long battle with cancer. His numerous decorations include the Silver Star, Legion of Merit with Oak Leaf Cluster, Bronze Star, Meritorious Service Medal with 4 Oak Leaf Clusters, Air Medal, and the Army Commendation Medal. He was also awarded the Combat Infantryman's Badge and Parachutist Badge. And this is really special that he was inducted into the Infantry Officer Candidate Hall of Fame in 1992. And I would think that you would agree with me that Colonel Rodham was a true citizen soldier. Now, at this time, Nick is going to present, give him a minute here, present flowers to his widow, Julie.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in a round of applause for Mrs. Julie Ryan at the Ryan bed.
And now I invite Deacon Bob Grimaldi up to talk about Captain Alexander.
Again, good morning. And Bud Alexander passed away on January 18th at home in the company of his loving family. Bud was the cherished husband of Melanie, father to Matthew and Greer, and father-in-law to John and Christina. He was also a wonderful and loving grandfather to Anna, William, Caitlin, and Madison. He was a role model and stepfather to Melanie's adult children, Mark, Brian, Glenn, and Melanie. He is survived by his sister Carol and brother-in-law Bill Gessler of Colorado Springs. We have a large showing of support for Bud, and thank you for being here. Bud was born in Levelland, Texas, 1935. He had 2 siblings, Randy and Carol. He received his undergraduate degree in civil engineering at the University of New Mexico, where he was also in the ROTC. Bud was commissioned as an ensign in the Navy June 23rd, 1958, and served his country at home and overseas for 26 years. While stationed in Western Australia, he used his engineering knowledge and military prowess to manage the construction of the U.S. Naval Communications Station in Exmouth. And despite the long 20-hour days and lack of any comforts from home and his personal self-sacrifice, fate would intervene and provide joy when least expected. Bud met Ida Potter of Perth. They would fall in love, marry, and remain husband and wife for 47 years. Bud was incredibly driven and brilliant. He received his master's in engineering from the prestigious Stanford University in 1967, and he worked as an officer of the Civil Engineering Corps for the Navy until his retirement in 1984. He retired as an 06 or captain and was awarded the Bronze Star for his service managing 4 construction battalions in Vietnam from 1969 to 1970. As a Navy man myself for 28 years, I can testify how difficult that job is in working with the Seabees and the construction personnel, all the while having to cope with the hot and humid and rainy weather. Mission readiness and success always came first, and that's just who Bud was: loyal, hardworking, problem solver, and selfless. I'm so outranked here. I've got an 06 here, Army, and I got a General 2-star, so I always feel that, but they can't do their job unless the Navy does their job to get all the material. So just remember that, okay? After retiring from the Navy, he used all of his skills to work for ICF Kaiser Engineers, managing the construction of I-595, the East-West Expressway linking I-75 with the Florida Turnpike to I-95 and the Fort Lauderdale Airport. Life as a retired vet was much better, allowing him to spend time with his family and build bridges of peace and charity to his local community through his leadership and his faith. Bud will be remembered by his friends, shipmates, and all those who served with him while in the Navy or as a civilian. I want to honor him, his accomplishments, as well as his servant leadership, his faithfulness, commitment to family, and a deep knowledge of history. He will be greatly missed by all those who loved him, especially his church family at St. Aidan's Episcopal Church, where he oversaw the construction of the Burtonshaw Hall and the design build of the Memorial Garden. Captain Bud, we all salute you for your heroic service and successful accomplishments to our great nation and the example that you set for your family and for your friends. Thank you, and enjoy your peace and reward in heaven. Well done.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in a round of applause for Bud's wife, Mrs. Melanie Alexander, and their family. And thank you for your participation.
Sorry about that, folks. We will now now we have our major speaker, Major General William Dyer.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My name is Nick Satriano, and I have the honor of serving as the chairman of the board of the Milton Veterans Memorial Marker Association. First and foremost, I would like to thank you all for attending. We have a saying in the military, and the saying goes essentially, that which does not kill you makes you stronger. So given the weather today, I think we'd all consider ourselves a heck of a lot stronger than when we woke up this morning. So thank you. Thank you for attending, and thank you for your dedication. Mayor Jameson, members of the City Council, everyone in attendance here today, members of our fire department, Milton Police Department, our Boy Scouts, members here that are veterans, members here that are family members. And most importantly, I also want to give special recognition to our military wives that are present, Mrs. Dyer and my wife, Dolores Satriano. Thank you very much. There's an expression that, as far as we follow, and that is that the backbone of what we do, we could not do what we do and did if it wasn't for our family members and especially our wives. So again, thank you. Thank you very much for the support that you have given us throughout the years. Now, I have a very special honor, and I am absolutely overjoyed to have this opportunity to say, first and foremost, my great friend Bob Grimaldi is absolutely correct, but I think as any military man would appreciate and agree, especially Sergeant Major Hershey, that perhaps one of the most important jobs is the judge advocate officer. Lawyers in the military are indispensable, and I'm sure everyone would agree. But I have the distinct honor, he's already looking at me now. So I have the distinct honor and pleasure of introducing my very dear friend, Major General Bill Dyer. Bill and I met many, many years ago when I and Dolores and our family transitioned down here from New York City, and I began my military career here in Georgia. I was doing some alternate drill work, and I found a location not far from Fort McPherson at the 335th Signal. And when I went there to do my drill, someone introduced me and said, "Hey, we have an attorney here, another fellow JAG officer, and I've got to introduce you." And that was the then Lieutenant Colonel Bill Dyer. And Bill and I became fast friends throughout the years and through many, many JAG Corps functions. Those functions, again, solidified our friendship through the years. The role of the Army lawyer, the role of the judge advocate has evolved through the years. And I can tell you, as the expression goes, if I or another commander had to pick an attorney to take downrange, I would certainly pick this gentleman to my right. Those individuals today truly contribute to the mission, both combat and non-combat mission. Judge advocates today impact many significant decisions by field commanders in the area of operational law, targeting, and so many other different functions and coalition relationships when you're involving your allies from different countries. I'd like to take a minute to please read Major General Dyer's biography. Major General Bill Dyer is the commanding general of the United States Army Reserve 108th Training Command, where he executes, command, and control over 8,000 Army Reserve soldiers who perform basic combat and leader training for both enlisted soldiers and junior officers across the United States. He earned his Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering from the Virginia Military Institute in 1985 and his law degree from the Cumberland School of Law at Samford University in 1992. His military education includes a master's in strategic studies from the United States Army War College. In his 39-year military career, he has led soldiers at every level as both an engineer officer and as a judge advocate, military lawyer. A veteran of 2 combat deployments, he was part of the initial invasion of Iraq in 2003. Later, in 2018, he led NATO's efforts to establish the rule of law in Afghanistan. His 2 immediate assignments were Assistant Judge Advocate General for Military Law and Operations with duty at the Pentagon and Commanding General of the Army Reserve Legal Command. He was promoted to Major General in 2022, and his military awards include the Defense Superior Service Medal, the Legion of Merit with 2 Oak Leaf Clusters, the Bronze Star Medal, Meritorious Service Medal with 5 Oak Leaf Clusters, the Presidential Unit Citation, and the Combat Action Badge. As a civilian, Major General Dyer is the managing partner of the Atlanta Law Office of Lee and Hayes, where he leads the firm's intellectual property litigation practice, primarily focusing on patent, trademark, and trade secrets issues. Major General Dyer, his wife Jill, and their 3 dogs, Duke and Sophie, 2 dogs, Duke and Sophie, have lived in Dunwoody, where they raised their 2 daughters since 2003. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct honor and privilege to offer you my dear friend and someone who has been a terrific mentor to me, Major General Bill Dyer.
So good morning, Milton. You know him as Nick. I know him as Major Satriano, Lieutenant Colonel Satriano, and eventually Colonel Satriano. And I could tell you, as great a leader and soldier as he was and is, he's an even better human being. So I'm privileged to call you friend, Nick. And I know all of you feel similarly privileged to call him your friend and neighbor. Mayor Jameson, thank you for the invitation to be here. Mayors, I think that's you two. I could tell. Okay. City council members, and all of you who braved the weather to be out here, I'm truly grateful to have you. This is my first time to Milton, or at least Milton proper.
I don't like to go anywhere completely unprepared. So I asked a buddy what I was getting into. I said, what's the vibe up there in Milton? What's it like? And he said, you ever play Monopoly? Well, sure. He goes, Milton, it's kind of like Boardwalk and Park Place. So by my calculation, I'm about to pass go and collect 200. And I'm not sure who's in charge of that. One of the two of you, but I'll pick it up on the way out. So thrilled to be here. Memorial Day, I grew up in a smallish town in Virginia, and like a lot of communities around the country, the Memorial Day remembrance, Memorial Day observation was a beautiful event. We'd wake up in the morning, we'd hang a flag, we'd go to an event like this, kind of like this. There'd be music, national anthem, but not like the version we just heard. That was remarkable. At the end, there would be more music, and ultimately a playing of taps. And then kind of sandwiched in the middle would be a guest speaker. And as a kid growing up, that was always the low point of the ceremony. So I'm hoping that's not the case today. But of course, it included remembrances of those who have fallen in defense of the nation. Over time, I began to wonder if these wonderful celebrations that we have around the country and the ones that I was part of growing up were really enough. And I don't mean long enough or enough songs or enough talk, but I mean, you're talking about recognizing, honoring, remembering individuals who lost their lives in defense of this nation. And what really could be enough? What could be enough? I rolled this around for a number of years, just kind of privately, and where I ended up was with a question that I've not yet answered, and it's something that I intend to discuss with you here today. And that is, if you can imagine those who have fallen, and the tally, depending on which one you look at, is roughly 1.5 million men and women died on the battlefield in defense of this nation. If they today, with the ability to look forward and see what they would have missed had they not lost their lives in battle, if they, from their position on high, were able to look out at where we are now as a nation, would they believe at an individual level that their sacrifice was worth it, that their sacrifice was justified? So to set this up and to give us a little bit of a framework, I'm going to introduce you very briefly to 3 individuals who died during combat. I'd like to tell you a little bit about them, a little bit about what they did, and a little bit on what they might have done if they had survived. And with that as a backdrop, we'll then go to my primary question, which is, was their sacrifice worth it in the end? Henry Johnson grew up in South Alabama. He was a poor kid. He did a bunch of odd jobs, couldn't really find anything to do. World War I was brewing off in the distance. And when there was an opportunity for him to join the Army and to serve his country, he thought, well, maybe I'll get some training, get some education. Certainly it's going to be better than what I'm doing here, doing manual labor. And so he enlisted. And he was a bright guy. He rose through the Army ranks pretty quickly, made it to the rank of sergeant. Back then it was a little different than it is in the Army now. Of course, we had desegregated the Army by that point. But as a young black man, he was assigned menial duties in the Army. Black soldiers back at that time, pre-World War I, did things like loading ships or driving trucks, things of that nature. But in World War I, as the intensity of the conflict in Europe grew and we needed more fighting soldiers, the United States Army took and created several battalions of black soldiers and put them into combat. The trick was the white soldiers at that time wouldn't allow the black soldiers to fight alongside them. So what the Army did is put those black soldiers next to some of our allies. And Henry's unit, Sergeant Johnson's unit, was assigned to fight alongside the French. They were in battle. He'd been there in battle for a number of months. A little bit of advance, a little bit of fallback. And if you know much about World War I, you know there was an awful lot of that for an awful long time. But at one point, his unit was ambushed by the Germans, and a part of his unit was separated. Not so far that he couldn't see what was going on. They were getting radio reports, and he... Oh boy, that music was right on cue. We'll hand out some poppies and get on our way. But anyhow, Henry's unit was ambushed, and a part of his unit was in grave danger, and he saw them taking casualties. And he repeatedly, over the course of several hours, ran across the battlefield through a hail of gunfire to bring his wounded comrades back to safety. He saved, and the accounts differ, somewhere between 12 and 14 of his fellow soldiers. He was wounded 15 times before he ultimately succumbed, and he succumbed at the age of 26. Had he survived, it's hard to tell exactly what would have happened, but he certainly would have come back to the United States with the adoration and the adulation of his community who knew him and who sent him off to war. Perhaps his experience in combat, his experience in the Army might have opened some opportunities for him. If he had lived, the 5 or 6 decades beyond that, which he could reasonably have expected to live, he might even have lived long enough to see the dawning of the civil rights movement in this country in the 50s and 60s as that began to gain momentum. And although he didn't have any formal education, he likely would have seen his grandchildren, possibly even his children, receive their first formal education in this country. The sacrifice of Henry Johnson on that battlefield was significant. It's easy to say someone is lost, they died on the battlefield, there was a great sacrifice. It's a little different when you start to put context to what that sacrifice is. In World War II, Charlie Harvath was a farm kid in Nebraska. He had 2 brothers. They spent their years doing manual labor on the farm. And the typical daily labor rate there was $1 a day, leading up to World War II. So partway through World War II, as our needs for fighting soldiers intensified, he was drafted. He and his 3 brothers were sent to the European theater of operation where they fought. Now, before he left to go to Europe, he and his brothers had saved their money. They'd saved a portion of their $1 a day wages, and shortly before he was deployed, they purchased a truck. They intended to start a trucking company. They were on the cusp of buying a second truck and adding to their company and having a viable business that got them out of the day laborer $1 a day mold. That was put on hold when he went to Europe. When he got to Europe, they realized that he had some familiarity, some facility with trucks, and so they put him in charge of a battalion, or they put him in a battalion of tank killers. And a tank killer, as you might imagine, was a great big vehicle that had a huge cannon that killed tanks. Yes. So he was in Europe. Japan had surrendered. World War II was coming to a close. And on the last day of World War II, at 9:00 a.m., the Germans formally surrendered to the Allies. But it took a little bit of time for that message to get down to the troops. 9 minutes after that surrender was effected, there was a skirmish between German troops and American troops. And Private First Class Horvath peeked his head up above the edge of his tank, was shot in the head and killed instantly. The sacrifice, yes. But had he returned, had he rejoined his brothers, they probably would have started that trucking company. They probably would have provided they would have provided jobs for other people. They would have provided a better way of living for their families. The ripples, the transformative ripples throughout the succeeding generations that were lost when he was lost on the battlefield the last day of World War II are significant. Vietnam. Sharon Lane, there are stories about Sharon Lane as a kid, a young girl from a modest means. She so loved caring for people, she so was interested in medicine that she fashioned from 2 pieces of string and a small piece of wood a stethoscope, a play stethoscope. And she would ride her bike around the neighborhood and check the vitals of everybody's pets just to make sure they were okay. She was focused on becoming a nurse from her earliest days. And at the time, Vietnam, that's kind of what you did if you were female and you were interested in medicine. You went into nursing, and she did. She was very bright, did well in high school, went to nursing school, got her nursing degree, and she wasn't drafted into the Army, but she thought, if I really want to care for people, who needs my care more than soldiers? So she joined the Army. She became an Army nurse. She was sent to Vietnam. Her letters home are interesting. You know, she went to great lengths not to worry her family about what she was going through in Vietnam. She minimized the dangers, but every day she was right in the thick of it. And then one day her number was called. A mortar round came over the wire, exploded outside the tent where she was caring for patients. A number of people were injured in that blast, and she was fatally wounded. So you try to imagine what would happen if First Lieutenant Lane had come home, had been able to resume a nursing practice in the United States, how many thousands or tens of thousands of people she would have provided care to over the course of her life, the family she might have had, the life she would have lived, what a pillar she would have been in her community, a female veteran of combat back and integrated into her community. The sacrifices of these individuals are significant. And I think, you know, again, it's one thing to say they sacrificed, and they all certainly did, but multiply those three individuals by the 1.5 million who gave their lives on the field of battle, and you begin to appreciate the magnitude of the sacrifice. So that brings me to my question. These people, and I imagine them being able to look down on us now, these soldiers, these fallen comrades, these warriors looking down on us now with a calm appreciation of what they chose to give up for our country. And looking down at America today, looking down at the United States today, would they feel it was worth it? Now, certainly, there's an awful lot in this country that would make their chests puff with pride. An awful lot. I mean, this nation is still the greatest force for peace and stability the world has ever known. Oh, we go to war and we fight, and we're not afraid to go to war and fight. But our greatest value is that for all the conflicts we've been involved in, our strength and our stability has deterred far more conflicts than it's instigated. They would all be immensely proud of that. The technology, you know, this nation has been a primary developer of technologies that have saved lives, made all of our lives easier. I mean, it's hard to point your finger at any significant development technology and not trace that back to the United States. And that didn't happen here just randomly. It happened here because the way this country was run, the way this country was organized, the opportunities that were provided to people who live in this country, the companies that developed those technological innovations were rewarded, were enabled. And individuals who developed technology were allowed to do that, monetize it, protect it, and benefit from it. It was incentivized. And there are other things about this nation that they would be proud of too. You know, I think of Sergeant Johnson, the African-American who died in World War I. And I imagine him looking down at our nation today. And listen, we've all got a long way to go, but this nation has continually led the world's charge in human rights. And I don't just mean race relations. I'm talking about gender rights. I'm talking about all kinds of rights. Our nation has a lot to be proud of in the way we've handled that. Again, you know, worldwide, we've always got a way to go. But I imagine him being intensely proud of that. But it's not all butterflies and bunny rabbits. I mean, there are some things that I think our fallen soldiers would look down and see. And I said soldiers, I mean soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marine, Coast Guardsmen, merchant mariners. I say soldiers instinctively, but I think you know what I mean. But there are things that they look down on, and I think they'd wonder about. They'd have question about. I think some of our fallen would look down and have a hard time understanding how ideological differences on things that maybe aren't that significant turn friends against one another, turn families against one another, create a sense of animus where neighbors don't talk to each other anymore. I think that would be puzzling to them. I don't think they'd understand. I think a lot of them would not understand at all. A country where a country where compromise is viewed as weakness. And in many cases in our country today, compromise is viewed as weakness. But this country was founded on compromise. The Declaration of Independence, there were multiple drafts of that, and it happened after intense discussion, intense compromise between the greatest minds in the country at the time. The same with the Constitution. The Constitution wasn't just plugging into Chat GPT and here it is. The Constitution is a document that embodies Constitution. Same with the Bill of Rights. Same with any significant piece of legislation that has ever passed through and become law in the United States. So I think they would look down and they would see, someone offering to compromise on one position or another as weak as puzzling. And I think they'd be disturbed, frankly. I think they'd be disturbed if they looked down and they saw an environment, a country where there are specific set ideological slates, plural, many of them, that are created elsewhere by others, and they're handed down and propagated, and you're made to feel that you either have to completely sign up for one ideological slate or another, or you're blacklisted, or you're tarnished, or you're somehow spoken about in derogatory terms as if you're not part of the team. I'm not sure that them looking down at us and seeing those things would necessarily make them think their sacrifice wasn't worth it, but I think it would give them pause. So what do we do about that? And if you're waiting for the answers, I'm not the guy. I don't have all the answers. But I think there are things we can do. I think there are things we can do to help stop that, to help turn that the other direction, to help those who are watching down on us now and hoping that this country remains strong and vibrant years into the future and isn't torn apart, or having confidence that that's going to happen. First of all, I think we can listen to one another. I think we can just listen. It seems like the world, and I'm not just talking about our country, but the world is full of people who are talking, and not listening. I think we'd all benefit from listening a little more. I think the idea of looking for compromise is important. Looking for compromise. And I'm not suggesting that anybody abandon their most personal, their most deeply held personal values. Those should be cherished, they should be defended. But every idea we have on every issue out there isn't a deeply held personal conviction. I think if we took a few minutes to try to find compromise, to express that compromise to people who have different views, I think we would go a long way toward easing the tension. And I think, frankly, stepping a little bit toward the middle, maybe just a small step, maybe appreciating that the objective isn't to hammer the other guy and the other woman's views into submission, but to find common ground that we can all operate on, that we can all benefit from. I think if we take those steps, and there are others that I know are coming to your mind as you hear today, we're in a much different situation. And we're then in a position where the immense sacrifices that were made by Henry, by Charlie, by Sharon, and by so many others whose crosses you drove by on the way in today, then I think those are fully justified. Then I think if we do that, we truly honor, not just remember, but we truly honor what they died to protect. Nick mentioned in the intro, I was in combat a couple different times, 2 different tours. And I could tell you the one thing that everybody who died in combat had in common was the flag they either wore on their shoulder or they represented. There was nobody who died in combat that I know of, and I would venture to say no Americans ever died in combat fighting for a political party, fighting for a particular ideology. Yet here, often, too often, in Bill Dyer's opinion, not General Dyer's opinion, but Bill Dyer's opinion, we allow that level of animus to pull at the very fibers of that flag and to threaten the continuity that they fought to protect, that they fought to defend, and that they gifted to us. So my question for you is, what are you going to do when you leave today? What are you going to do? I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go home, I'm going to grill some burgers, I'm going to get a cold beverage, and I'm going to spend the afternoon with people I love, and I'm going to redouble my effort to be a listener, not a talker, to consider opinions of others that aren't necessarily my own. I'm going to look for opportunities to compromise on issues that merit compromise. And I'm going to try to reject. I'm going to try to find the courage to step away from the mentality that if I am not completely in line with one particular ideological slate or another, that I am somehow not a true believer. I am somehow not good. I'm somehow not a patriot. I think if I do that, I think if you do that, I think if we do that, what we end up with is a country that comes together, a country that truly does not just remember the sacrifices of those who died on the battlefield, but truly honors them and their sacrifices. Thank you again for the opportunity to be here, Nick, mayors. I appreciate very much the opportunity to share a few thoughts with you today. God bless you, and God bless this great nation of ours.
I now have the opportunity to make some closing remarks before we conclude our ceremony. And one of the things in thinking about what I wanted to say today, I kind of thought about it yesterday while I was in church. And I said to myself, I'm going to start in by saying, what a blessing it is to live in freedom. I'll say it again. What a blessing it is to live in freedom. And similar to what Major General Dyer just said, what exactly does that mean? I think Bill's remarks were excellent and spot on, that connotes some degree of responsibility, that the service and sacrifice of those individuals that we honor today, the fallen and their families, requires some degree of responsibility on our part to get it right. We don't lecture as to what it takes to get it right. Everyone knows in their own hearts and minds what their decision will be to get it right. I know I am very, very inspired by what I hear today. I'm inspired by what I see today. I'm inspired because I see service and sacrifice and commitment and dedication from so many people, because our world, our community is a microcosm of specialists. We have police, fire, EMS, political dedication, veterans, military, clergy, citizens, military. It takes a village, right? And that's exactly what this community is. And it is a blessing. It is a blessing of freedom in this community. Every year, we have so much fun deploying those markers out there because the community gets together, and together we put out as Bill said, almost 900 markers. At some point, we will be over 1,000. We'll probably have to reclaim land from Alpharetta. We're working on that, especially Alpharetta. But it really does demonstrate that there is a strong commitment to do what is right and to honor those that we need to honor, and that it's not just our founding fathers, it's so many people that we see and sometimes overlook today in our own community so that we could get it right, okay? That's what is so important. You know, we lost another patriot this year, and some people will know him, and most people probably will. Hopefully a lot of our young people will know him, and that is Mr. Toby Keith. I love Toby Keith. And there is something in a song that he created and sang called Brought to You by the Red, White, and Blue. I think I have the title right. But I'd like to read a portion of that song, and it starts in by saying, American girls and American guys will always stand up and salute, will always recognize. When we see Old Glory flying, there's a lot of men dead. So we can sleep in peace at night when we lay down our head. My daddy served in the army where he lost his right eye, but he flew his flag in our yard till the day he died. He wanted my mother, my brother, my sister, and me to grow up and live happy in the land of the free. I love those words, and those words are inspirational. I happened to be on social media a couple of days ago, and I found this clip, and I asked Emily to see if she can put this together, so I think it will work. So prepare to be inspired. Go. Now, I don't care if you're 18 or 80. If you're not inspired and ready to sign up, something's wrong with you. Seriously. I look at those young ladies and I get truly inspired, as most of the senior folks in the military here will attest to, the great joy that we get as senior enlisted soldiers, sailors, airmen and Marines, Coast Guardmen, Guardians, you name it, or officers, is to see the progression of young people taking up that banner, waving that flag, because as my dear friend says, there is no stronger force on earth than that motivation, courage, and determination. I had the pleasure to serve our Army for 30 years, and I wish to God I could serve it for 40 more, but that's not the case. Each of you will decide what your true mission and calling is. To some of our young people out there, we incorporated something new into this ceremony this year. And for our parents thinking about their children's futures, we have recruiters from the United States Marine Corps and from the United States Navy. And I would like to thank them for taking their day off and coming here and spending their time with us today. So ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause. Please feel free to speak with them or just thank them. for their service. We truly appreciate their presence and their commitment for us and their service to us as well. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there is something else that I would like to point out. And in doing my search for this morning, I found that clip. Many of you probably already saw that clip, and that's been out for years. It is a clip of a young woman with her baby lying on the grave of her fallen husband. To me, that sums it all up. Just as Bill said so poignantly, I wonder what those folks who gave the ultimate sacrifice would think about today, their hopes, their dreams. I look at that picture and I look at that young woman and child, and I think about how awful their lives have been altered for their service, their sacrifice, the loss of a loved one. I look at all of these crosses out there, those markers out there, and I think the same, because each one tells a personal story full of tears, referencing what could have been and what would have been, but for the sacrifice. But without feeling terribly depressed that there's no hope, you have to take a negative and make a positive, right? You have to, because that's what the fallen would have asked us to do. They did what they wanted to do, and they died doing what they wanted to do for us. Sergeant Major Hershey spoke about that last year at that ceremony that we all attended. And nothing could be more truthful. So when you look at that picture, think about what's on her mind. Think about the baby in that picture. Enjoy for the next 2 weeks walking amongst those markers, seeing those flags wave. Another thing I like to do in making these closing remarks is I like to reference a few quotes. And I did last night as we were checking weather reports. The first quote, and it says this: "We do not know one promise these men made, one pledge they gave, one word they spoke, but we know they summed up and perfected by one supreme act the highest virtues of men and citizens. For the love of country, they accepted death, and thus resolved all doubts and made immortal their patriotism and their virtue." President James Garfield. And the second quote: "Our flag does not fly because the wind moves it. It flies with the last breath of each soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, Guardian, Coast Guardman who died protecting it." How true. So when you see those flags wave out there, please think about that. This has been a wonderful, wonderful day. And I want to thank my dear friend for coming and honoring us with his remarks, honoring us with his continued service. I want to thank both Deacon Paul and Deacon Bob for their spiritual support, for coming here, and their words, truly remarkable, truly poignant. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, again, for your hospitality. Thank you for just being there for us always. We truly appreciate it. I want to say thank you to my fellow board members, Bill Lusk, Ron Wallace, Justin DeCudo, Clint Jones, Adriana Blanford, and our newest member, Adam Danello. Those individuals make my job really easy, so thank you very much. Tom Fiorello, certainly. I think I got everybody. So, in closing, I want to present some gifts. And I'd like to have General Dyer please come up. We have a gift, thanks to Ms. Salerno, prepared for you. And it's a little bit of Milton packed into this little box. So I won't go through everything, but again, on behalf of all of us, Bill, thank you very, very much. And we also have a special gift for you at the end of the ceremony. That 2-star flag, and some of us may not really know what that is, but when you have the presence of a general, a flag officer, a 1-star, a 2-star, a 3-star, or a 4-star, they have to have, for events, a special flag, and that's called a 2-star flag to represent Major General Dyer's 2 stars. So, from what I understand, we procured that flag. We will unpack that flag, take that down, and you and Jill could fly that at your home. So, congratulations. I also have some special flowers, and I would like to present Mrs. Dyer with the bouquet as well. Thank you. I also would like at this point for Emily to please come out. And Michaela, where are you? Come on up. You talk about a force? Well, these young ladies certainly represent the best. Emily and Michaela, all the work you did. Emily, all the phone calls, all the text messages. When I tell you she worked hard, that's an understatement. So what we can give you now is our love, thanks, and appreciation for a job very well done. That's an extra. See what I mean about the wife? Okay. So, guys, come on in, please. I'll have the recruiters come in for a second. And I want to ask Sergeant Major Paul Hershey from the United States Marine Corps to come on up. We have a special ceremony or a special exchange in the military, and that is to recognize with a coin excellence. And we truly appreciate each of these gentlemen for being here today. Major Fisher represents our Marine Corps team and contingency, and Petty Officer Austin Jones is here from the United States Navy. So I would like everybody to please give them a round of thanks as we present them with our coins. Thank you, Paul. Pardon?
What I just gave the major is I was very lucky and honored to be at the dedication for the Marine Corps Museum in Quantico. And that coin is from that dedication. If you ever get a chance, go to the museum. We're very honored. And it's nice to see my replacements.
Okay. Lastly, ladies and gentlemen, before we conclude, I would just like to recognize and ask any veterans in the audience to please stand up. Let's give them a round of applause as well. As you know, thanks to the mayor and the city council, we'll be back at Veterans Day and we'll be putting out the markers again in November. But again, please enjoy them as they remain up. And I ask that everyone enjoy the markers until the next 2 weeks and let this be the start of a beautiful summer season. So everyone, thank you on behalf of everyone. Thank you for coming out today and truly enjoying and honoring us with your presence. Thank you for your dedication and your support. We couldn't do what we do if we didn't have it. So thank you again very, very much, everyone involved. We have a couple of last-minute things that I think will be very poignant regarding the significance of the day. So happy Memorial Day to everyone, and please enjoy. Please, on your way out, or still take some more bagels and refreshments, and everyone enjoy their weekend. Thank you. The one drawback to being inside this year is that unfortunately we had prepared a flyover for the official Milton Air Force that some of you may have remembered from last year, but due to circumstances, it would not be advantageous to have 3 or 4 crates of pigeons flying around inside. So at this moment, pretend they're outside. This concludes our ceremony, ladies and gentlemen. Again, thank you very much, and God bless you. I'm sorry. Oh, excuse me, yes, and the retirement of the colors. But thank you. Please remain standing. Forward, march. Maritime march. Hope. Right face. Three colors. About face. Right face. Left face. Forward march. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to ask Deacon Paul Doppel to come up and give our benediction, and this will officially conclude our ceremony. Thank you.
Let us bow our heads in prayer. Heavenly Father of us all, we give you praise and glory for your great majesty. Today we offer our prayer of thanksgiving for the many blessings you have bestowed on each of us here, and the many blessings you have bestowed on our great nation, the United States of America. As a God-fearing nation, we have been blessed with many sons and daughters who have been proud to serve in our armed forces. Many have made the ultimate sacrifice to preserve our most precious gift of freedom. We ask you, Heavenly Father, to bring all of our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines who have given their lives in the defense of our great nation into your loving arms and care for them. We also commit to your loving care all of those who have served in our armed forces but now have passed on to eternity, like Colonel Ronnie Rodham and Captain Bud Alexander. Just as our founding fathers placed their trust in your great mercy, we graciously ask that you keep safe all who are currently serving in our armed forces and their families. We also pray for our many great veterans and wounded warriors, and that they be cared for with their medical needs or psychological needs. And may they always be treated with the greatest respect and dignity that they have earned as defenders of our nation. We ask your blessings on the community of Milton and the surrounding communities and their leaders. And please bless in a special way all those who are here today and their families. In humble prayer, we ask for your continued blessings on our nation, and we especially beseech you to allow the wisdom of your teachings and the values of our nation's founding fathers to be embraced by all those who lead and govern our nation. We pray that they will place love of God and love of country as their guiding principles. Oh God, may we never forget that you are the source of all goodness and blessings. We place our trust in you, and may we always say with great confidence, in God we trust. And let us all say, amen. Now we have, final is the Amazing Grace by our bagpipist, Tom Crawford.